Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are diving straight into the raw psychology of intimacy, human desire, and ancient philosophy. We'll be unpacking a truly fascinating piece of writing from the broken marble titled Eros in the Ruins. And we're going to explore how an ancient civilization's understanding of love completely dismantles how we view romance today. So let me ask you something right off the bat. Are you in love, or are you just in lust? Sounds like a super simple distinction, right? But man, human history shows us that this one single question literally upends lives.
Picture this. It's a Tuesday evening party. You almost didn't even go. You lock eyes with a total stranger across the room. You don't know their name, you don't know if they're actually a kind person or if they keep their promises, but you feel this electric certainty, almost violent in its conviction, that you just have to cross that room. And you do. By the end of the night, you are absolutely convinced, I am in love. But, ask yourself a decade later after a grueling 3-year relationship with that exact same person, and you'll probably laugh with this rueful tenderness and say, okay, yeah, I was in lust. But wow, it felt exactly the same.
So here is our roadmap for exploring this ancient framework today. We're going to hit the modern confusion, the 6 forms of love, the danger of the soulmate, the ladder of desire, and finally, what happens after the god leaves. All right, starting off with Section 1, the modern confusion and our linguistic limit. Honestly, the ancient Greeks would find us kind of embarrassing today, and it's all because of our language. Imagine using the word food to describe frantically eating stale crackers over the sink at midnight, and also using it for a 5-course Michelin star tasting menu. That's ridiculous, right? But that is exactly what we do with the word love. We use the exact same 4-letter word for teenagers sweating in the back of a car on prom night, and for long-married companions quietly holding hands in a hospital waiting room. It's wild when you really think about it. Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, the 6 forms of love, an ancient taxonomy. To fix this whole modern confusion, the Greeks codified love into 6 really precise, distinct forms. We're going to go through them, because each one has its own timeline and moral weight. First up is eros, which is where we get the word erotic. Eros is that passionate, sensory, totally consuming desire. But here is the absolute key. It arrives completely uninvited. It's that physical, sensory pull that just overwhelms your will. A perfect example is exactly what we talked about earlier, the electric certainty of a woman crossing a room for a beautiful stranger. You do not choose eros. Eros absolutely chooses you. Next, we have philia. This is deep friendship and trust, and it's built over time through shared experiences. The philosopher Aristotle actually thought philia was incredibly philosophical, maybe even more so than eros. Why? Because you're genuinely directing it at another person's character. An example here would be loving a friend entirely for who they are, not for what they can do for you or how they make you feel. Then there's storge. This one is familial love. It's an instinctive, gentle, and often completely unconscious attachment. The classic example of storge is the fierce, protective love a parent just inherently feels for a newborn child. It's that quiet, habitual love that's just already there, long before any conscious choice is even made. Number 4 on the list is pragma. Pragma is that settled, enduring tenderness forged strictly by time. This is the kind of love that only decades together can actually produce. Think of those companions in the hospital waiting room we mentioned earlier, or the deep, invisible roots of a really old tree. You might not see pragma operating day to day, but its strength is totally immovable. Next up, ludus. This is playful love and flirtation. It's that sparkling, light-hearted, uncommitted dance of a brand new attraction. This type of love exists literally just for its own delight. It's the fun, teasing stage when you first meet someone you're drawn to, way before any heavy expectations start to set in. And finally, we round out the taxonomy with agape. Agape is unconditional, selfless care. It's this expansive, loving kindness oriented entirely toward another person's well-being. Honestly, it's a nearly impossible aspiration, to love completely without your own ego or agenda at the center. So if we look back at our woman crossing the room at the party, she's definitely experiencing eros, maybe a bit of ludus, but she absolutely cannot be experiencing pragma or agape yet. Why? Because those specific forms of love require time as their raw material. Moving right along to Section 3, the danger of the soulmate, Aristophanes' myth. So let's look at how all this builds into a massive issue we still deal with today. There's this myth from Plato's Symposium told by the playwright Aristophanes. The story goes that humans were originally these whole creatures, 4 arms, 4 legs, 2 faces. We were way too powerful, so Zeus actually cut us in half. And ever since, we wander the world desperately searching for our missing half. As the quote here says, Hephaestus offers to weld them back together so completely that they will be one flesh. This, right here, this is the exact origin of the modern soulmate theory. We feel this ache of incompleteness, so we go out searching for the one to weld us back together. But here's the kicker. Plato includes this myth to point out a huge, glaring flaw. If you love someone purely because they complete your missing half, that is transactional desire. It is entirely self-directed. It's literally just about fixing your own inner ache. The other person isn't even an independent human to you. They're just a puzzle piece for your own ego. True love, on the flip side, is an active perception. It's making the really difficult daily decision to see someone as a whole, independent reality and actively choosing to love them as a whole.
All right, section 4. The Ladder of Desire, Plato's Symposium.
Also in the Symposium, there's a philosopher named Diotima, and she teaches Socrates this incredibly radical idea. She tells him that eros, that overwhelming physical lust, it isn't a sin at all. It's actually a starting point. So you begin at step 1, being intensely drawn to a single, beautiful body. And that desire is real and it's important. But if you let it open your eyes, it expands. You move up to step 2, loving beautiful souls, realizing that someone's inner life is far more enduring than their physical form. Then you ascend to step 3, beautiful ideas, until finally, right at the summit, step 4, you arrive at the eternal form of beauty itself. So lust isn't the enemy of wisdom. It's literally just the first rung on the ladder toward truth. There's this incredible takeaway here. Lust is love's first syllable. It is the beginning of a sentence most people never finish. And wow, isn't that the tragic reality of human relationships? Most people get totally struck by the beauty of a body. They stop dead at the very first rung of the ladder, and they mistakenly call that love. Then, when the novelty of that physical appearance inevitably fades, they throw their hands up and believe love has failed. But love didn't fail. Desire just did exactly what desire always does. It diminished in the presence of the familiar. And that brings us to our final part, section 5, after the god leaves. Chemistry versus character. So what actually happens when that initial wild fire of infatuation hits a plateau and burns down? Remember how we said the Greeks personified Eros as a god? Well, they didn't just do that to sound poetic. They did it to make a really precise psychological point. Desire is involuntary. Eros is a god who arrives uninvited, not a choice we make. You don't choose to feel that initial spark. It's a visitation upon your will. And because it's involuntary, it literally cannot, on its own, be love, because love requires choice. In every single relationship, the obsession eventually quiets down. The Greeks thought this is the exact moment the god Eros packs up and departs. And this brings us to such a crucial realization. Everything before that moment is chemistry. Everything after is character. When the god leaves the room, we usually panic. We think, oh no, the love is gone. But the Greeks would say, no, this is the exact moment love actually becomes possible. True love is what you do after the god leaves. It's when you have to look at the complicated, totally ordinary human being sitting across the table from you and actively choose to stay. So I'm going to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative question to really chew on in your own life. When that intoxicating spark fades and Eros finally leaves the room, what are you actually willing to do? Because that daily choice, that commitment of character, is the true architecture of desire. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer today. I really hope this changes how you view the raw material of your own relationships. Keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next one.